our third secret, why our revolutionary system works, even when working with the most entitled employees. Because again, I know you're probably thinking you've got the worst employees out there, but this works. It works with employees that aren't entitled. It brings their performance up to the next level, and it works with our really entitled employees, including ones that have been there for years and years and years, and might even be closer to retirement than they are to their start of their career. And again, we want to get you out of any of those false beliefs that you're still holding, that, you know, I can't do it, it's too hard, I'm too busy, I don't have time, employees won't change, because the fact is all of this is possible when you have a proven framework that you can follow step by step to get you there. So here's something you have to understand. Entitled behavior is driven by emotions, not thoughts. It's not conscious. It's an emotional response to whatever's going on in the situation. But here's the problem. Leaders don't know how to separate the issue from the emotion. And so they get scared off by that emotion. They don't know how to tackle it, and they think, I can't handle those emotions, and I don't know what to do with their emotions, so I can't do anything, and they back off. As opposed to actually being able to say, what's the actual issue versus what's the emotion? So you go back to that example of the employee who didn't want to take notes, and the leader who, once they had the reaction they did from the employee, didn't know where to go. Well, the issue is not about what they like or don't like, or what their preference is, or it's not. The issue is that things are falling through the gaps, and things are getting missed because the individual is not taking effective notes in these meetings and when tasks are being delegated. And so the actual issue is there's a performance gap, and that performance gap needs to be resolved. And one of the steps to resolving it is for this individual to take notes. It's non-negotiable. You can't sit in a 2-hour meeting and think you don't need to take notes and you can walk out and remember everything that was decided upon and all of the actions that need to follow. It's unrealistic. She doesn't get to make that decision based on her preference. That's her emotional response. The issue is the performance gap, and as a leader, we want to stay with the performance gap. But here's what I want to say to you. It's not the fault of the leaders. We know that. Leaders have never been given the tools to help employees to excel at followership, because that's what we have to do. We have to teach our employees, entitled or not, how to follow us. And we have to lead in a way that ensures their ability to follow us effectively. But we've never been given the tools. We don't know. We just go, we talk to them, we ask them, we hope for the best. I know for me, it's, my style, I tend to give information and not direction, and that has a massive impact in terms of what I get back. And so just even that little thing about learning about that tool of learning to give direction versus information makes a massive difference in the performance and behavior that I get from my people. The other thing that we know that contributes to this is that leaders are so busy doing that they don't have time. More and more of our leaders in organizations are what we call working leaders or working executives. And what that means is their job is to lead, but a bigger percentage of their time actually goes to the doing and the completing of tasks. And so that makes it really challenging. And so if I'm really busy, I don't have time. I don't want to wade in with the conflict. I don't want to deal with the behavior. I just got to keep running and keep going. And it's easier then for me to take it on myself. But then leaders take on more and more. And of course, nobody's focused on the happiness of the leaders or how engaged the leaders are. Everybody's focused on the employees. And so our leaders are burning out. That level of busyness and that inability to lead effectively because they're so busy actually is, just keeps going round and round. And so we don't actually see leaders being able to step out of that, again, without the support and without the tools to do it. What also happens with here is that great employees end up getting left behind. And so we get their worst behavior when we're not leading effectively, when we don't know how to manage or navigate through their emotions or the complexities of their behavior. We actually do get their worst behavior. And the more we abdicate authority and create a vacuum for them, the more they act out and the worse behavior we get. And we see even situations where, I've been in a meeting where someone who's a relatively new professional level employee telling the CEO, founder of the company that they can't do something because that doesn't make any sense. And again, that's the worst behavior because the leader opened it up for discussion as opposed to saying, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, and this is my decision to make. Now let's talk about what support you need to make it happen. And so instead, we create these circumstances where we do really get their reactive behavior. And no one fundamentally has ever given leaders the understanding and skills to handle the complexities of leading their people. People are complex. We get their emotions, we get their behavior. Their actions are not driven by thought, it's driven by emotion. And if we don't understand that, if we don't understand that about ourselves and about our people, there's no way that we can lead them effectively. Our discovery after helping thousands of leaders throughout our training and coaching programs was to really think about what you needed to do differently as a leader, and to have an actual model that you can follow, to take the guesswork out of it, to get the trial and error out of this, because otherwise it's just, you know, same stuff, different day. If we don't actually have a framework that we're following, that we don't understand the structure for leading effectively, and we track it in a couple of different ways, because we talk about what the employee is doing through the process, but also what we as leaders are doing, and how it's different at different stages of the employee's relationship with us and the employee's own development and their capacity for performance around a particular task or activity. So this led us to develop our Leading with Authority framework, and we represent it with 6 distinct pillars, and each of those pillars builds on the one before it, and it is systematic in that place that you have to start with pillar 1. You can't just jump into pillar 6 and be done with it. You have to work your way through each one of the pillars. But the beauty of this model is, for everyone that's in a leadership role, it tells you exactly step by step what you need to do, the skills you need to learn, the tools you need to use when you're dealing with different things. It forces you to really reflect on yourself as a leader, but also to push you to master these skills and competencies, because it's not just enough to know it. So I know I need to give my employee feedback, but then I have to take that to the point where I've practiced it enough that I've mastered it to the point where I can manage and not react emotionally myself to their reactions, that I can negotiate and resolve issues with them, and that I can get to the outcome that I want. Because at the end of the day, it's not about starting the process, it's about getting to that final outcome. And that's what this framework does in each of the different steps. So we start with knowing yourself, because all leadership development, all leadership growth comes from a really strong fundamental awareness of ourselves and a building up of those emotional intelligent competencies that are focused on self-awareness and self-management. And then it's about knowing your people, because our people are not all the same. We can't treat them all the same. We actually have to work with them in a different way. Knowing our people, what triggers their emotional reactions? How do we look at them in a more predictable way so that we can respond to them more effectively? How do we adjust our leadership style so that we can be ultimately more effective with them in that situation? And then pillar number 3 starts to move out, and it looks at directing performance and establishing authority. So out of the gate, we're not empowering, we are directing performance, and we are establishing our authority, and we were building up that relationship with our employees so that we can be effective in leading them and they can be effective in following us. Then as we get past and our employees get past that first pillar, we shift into coaching their performance. So we're still involved, we're still reinforcing our authority, which is the other part of pillar number 2. We haven't let go of the reins, but we are working with them to really support them to master it, and to ultimately get them to the place where they can work more autonomously, which is then where we move to facilitating performance and stabilizing our authority. So now we're starting to let the employee do a little bit more on their own. They're running with a little bit more freedom, but again, we have not abandoned our authority in there. We've stabilized it. We've gotten it to a level where it's like, this works for us. We're consistent in the performance, we're consistent in the behavior, and so now we're going to hold at this place. And then the very last one is overseeing performance and maintaining authority. And this is where an employee has gotten to a level of mastery where we really can step back and we can check in, but again, we're maintaining our authority. We're never totally letting go, because at the end of the day, I'm still accountable as the leader for whatever it is what the employee is working on. So this framework for developing as a leader takes you through everything that you need to know, understand, but more importantly, it supports you to master those skills, to master those competencies, and to equip you with the tools that make this so easy and so ultimately effective for you. So secret number 3, now you know that you have to build the skills required to establish authority and lead with potency.